All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're stepping into a case that honestly feels like a logic puzzle designed by a horror novelist. We're talking about Anatoly Moskvin. And Anna, I know you've been deep diving into the archives on this one for a few days now.
Alex, I haven't slept properly since I started. Seriously. This case is the definition of the more you know, the worse it gets. Usually, when we talk about dark figures, they fit a certain profile. Outcasts, perhaps. But Moskvin? He was a genius. Like a literal, certified genius.
Right. Let's set the stage for people who haven't heard the name. Before the headlines called him the Lord of the Mummies, he was a highly respected academic in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. We're talking about a man who was an expert on Celtic history, a linguist who reportedly spoke 13 different languages. He was basically a walking encyclopedia of local history.
13 languages? I can barely manage my high school Spanish on a good day. He was a regular contributor to newspapers, a researcher. People in the academic community looked up to him. He was a bit eccentric, sure, but in that brilliant professor kind of way. He would spend his weekends exploring cemeteries, which, okay, is a bit niche, but for a historian, it made sense. He was documenting local folklore.
It was his job, or so everyone thought. But in 2011, the curtain finally pulled back, and the transition from eccentric historian to national nightmare happened almost by accident. The police weren't even looking for what they eventually found.
Exactly. There had been a series of grave desecrations in the area, and the authorities were actually investigating extremist groups. They thought maybe it was some kind of political vandalism. They ended up at Moskvin's apartment essentially to ask him for expert advice, or because he was a known cemetery crawler. When they walked into that 3-room apartment he shared with his elderly parents, they thought they'd walked into a doll museum.
This is where it gets incredibly visceral. Describe the scene for us, Anna, because dolls doesn't quite capture the reality of what those officers were looking at.
Imagine a cramped, floor-to-ceiling cluttered apartment. There are 26 life-size dolls scattered everywhere. They're dressed in elaborate, brightly colored clothes, dresses, knee-high socks, ribbons in their hair. Some were sitting on the couch, others were tucked into corners. Some even had makeup applied to their faces. One officer actually reached out to move one of the dolls, and that's when the world shifted. It wasn't plastic. It wasn't wax. It was mummified human remains.
26 of them, all girls and young women. He had been digging them up from local cemeteries for years, bringing them home and, I can't believe I'm saying this, restoring them. It's important to note the ages here too. Most were between the ages of 3 and 15.
It's the level of detail that gets me, Alex. He didn't just bring them home. He stuffed their chest cavities with padding and fabric so they looked full. He used salt and baking soda to dry them out. He even put buttons or toy eyes into their sockets. And the most haunting part? He put music boxes inside their rib cages. He wanted them to be able to sing or make noise when he touched them.
That detail about the music boxes, it implies a level of interaction that is beyond disturbing. He wasn't just a collector, he was playing house. He held birthday parties for them, he watched cartoons with them, he even claimed he was waiting for science or magic to find a way to bring them back to life.
He actually said that during his interrogation. He told the police he felt sorry for the girls. He thought they were lonely in the cold ground and that he was rescuing them. He would literally sleep in the graves of recently buried children to communicate with them and ask if they wanted to come home with him. He claimed he only took the ones who said yes.
The psychological profile here is fascinating, if you can distance yourself from the horror of it. He wasn't motivated by the typical dark urges we see in these cases. There was no evidence of physical or sexual abuse. In his mind, he was a caretaker. He was a necropologist, as he called it. But Anna, there's an origin story here, isn't there? A specific event he cited as the root of this obsession?
Oh, the Black Wedding. This is the anecdote he told that supposedly explains everything. When he was about 13, he was at the funeral of an 11-year-old girl named Natasha. According to Moskvin, the adults at the funeral forced him to kiss the dead girl's forehead. He said the girl's mother then put a ring on his finger and a ring on the dead girl's finger, effectively marrying them in this macabre ceremony. He claimed that from that day on, he believed he had a special connection to the dead.
It sounds like a Gothic myth, doesn't it? Whether it happened exactly like that or it's a reconstructed memory, it clearly defined his worldview. He saw the line between life and death as being very thin, almost permeable. But we have to talk about the impact on the families. Can you imagine? You bury your child, you visit the graves for years to grieve, and all that time, the coffin is empty. Your daughter is actually across town in some man's apartment, dressed up like a Victorian doll.
That's the part that really breaks my heart. There was one mother, Natalia Chardomova, whose 10-year-old daughter Olga was one of the girls found in the apartment. Natalia had been visiting Olga's grave for 9 years. She had no idea the grave had been disturbed. She said that when the police told her, she felt like her daughter had died all over again. But this time it was even more gruesome. And the way Moskvin treated the families in court, it was cold. He showed zero remorse.
He actually told them they had abandoned their children in the cold, and he was the one who gave them warmth. It's a total inversion of reality. Now, legally, what happened to him? Given his high level of intelligence and the clearly delusional nature of his actions, the courts had a difficult task.
They ended up diagnosing him with paranoid schizophrenia. He was ruled unfit to stand trial in a traditional sense and was instead committed to a psychiatric hospital. He's been there ever since. Every few years, there's a review to see if he's cured enough to be released to outpatient care, but so far the medical experts have consistently said no. He still holds on to his beliefs, Alex. He doesn't see what he did as wrong.
It's a chilling reminder that brilliance doesn't equal sanity. You have a man who could decode ancient texts and speak to people in a dozen tongues, yet he couldn't grasp the basic human sanctity of the dead. He lived in a world of his own making, populated by these silent, singing dolls.
It really makes you wonder about the people who knew him. His parents lived in that apartment. They said they saw the dolls, but they just thought it was a weird hobby. They thought their son was just making life-size dolls out of fabric and clay. They never once thought to look closer. I guess we see what we want to see, especially when it's someone we love.
That's a terrifying thought to end on, Anna. The monsters aren't always hiding in the shadows. Sometimes they're right in the living room, surrounded by music boxes and ribbons. Thanks for walking us through this one, as dark as it was.
Anytime, Alex, though I think I'll be staying away from the doll aisle at the store for a while. Let's do something lighter next time, please.
We'll see. Until next time, everyone.